Hey, I'm Jeff Komar from Avid. I'm an application specialist and here to chat a bit about HDX, Pro Tools AAX plugins, as well as the future of Pro Tools. Really, HDX is a big leap forward in terms of sound quality and power. And as far as sound quality is concerned, now with the Pro Tools HDX mixer, you have basically a 64-bit float mixer, which essentially you can sum together hundreds and hundreds of channels and have tons of headroom, right? You're never going to clip the mix bus. The processing now in Pro Tools with HDX is all being done 32-bit float. So when you run a plugin off of the DSP now, it's 32-bit float processing. You've got tons of headroom. And really, AAX is all about being able to host the algorithm either on the DSP, off the HDX card, or off of the host, native. And the card was really designed with mixed workflows in mind, right? Being able to move things between the DSP and the host based on your production needs. We've been doing DSP for a long time, and we do it really well, which essentially in a tracking environment, you can get the lowest possible latency by essentially offloading all your key signal processing to a DSP. But as the production evolves, maybe you are doing more processing. You can actually then load balance and do things off the DSP and off the host processor. And obviously, since we first released Pro Tools TDM, host processing has evolved. It's gone exponentially in terms of power. So now we're really allowing you to leverage that, where TDM it was never designed to take advantage of host. It was really only designed to only do real-time real-time DSP processing, essentially. With HDX, you've got better workflows too. So we're moving towards a 64-bit version of Pro Tools. And what that means is you'll be able to address really as much RAM as you have in your computer, work with massive sessions and huge virtual instruments, and be able to tackle the biggest, most complex projects you can imagine. But now with AAX, as opposed to TDM and RTAS, you've got one unified format that will run anywhere, meaning if you're in that tracking scenario, you can run it real-time DSP for the lowest total system latency directly off the HDX card. You can run it off of real-time host. You can move that over to your native i7 processor, for example, and run it real-time host, and it sounds identical. You can also render it, right? You can also process it through Audio Suite, and all the plugins that we make have all those formats, so you have tons of flexibility of working. So just to talk about the HDX architecture a little bit, it's actually very different from TDM in that TDM was really a pool of DSPs, of Motorola DSPs, and everything we were doing was happening off of those chips. With HDX, it's really as I already said, a hybrid environment, but it's got a mixture of DSP chips and FPGA chips. For example, our voice engine, so a single HDX card can attach up to 64 ins and outs of high sample rate I/O. And on that card, all that I/O handling is being handled by a dedicated FPGA. So you've got a chip that all it's doing is handling 64 channels of I/O. You have another FPGA on that card that is essentially giving you a 256 voice engine. And if you remember, with TDM HDXL, to get a voice engine, you had to actually use DSP chips, right, and take away from your pool of DSP that you'd otherwise be using for your mixer or for signal processing plugins. So we've offloaded that now to a separate dedicated chip. So you still have, once you've built your 256 voices, you still have full DSP, which is 18 separate TI DSPs that are so much more efficient, in part because they support something called multi-shell. And that allows you basically multiple different third-party plugins as well as Avid plugins to use the same DSP, to run off the same chip, where with HDXL, it was very rare that you'd actually see different vendors, different manufacturers running, sharing a chip, right? This is far more common now with HDX. So you've got a purpose-built card that has tremendous capabilities, high resolution 64-bit summing mixer, signal processing plugins, as we said, all 32-bit float running off of the card. You've got 4 times the delay compensation that you do with HDXL, so over 16,000 samples of delay compensation, again, dedicated on the card. Each card can attach 64 channels of I/O, and then you can cascade up to 3 HDX cards. You could get a massive configuration for up to 192 channels of I/O with 768 playback voices, so pretty massive. Each HDX card is equivalent roughly to at least 5 Excel cards, so it's a pretty major improvement and very easy to fit a massively powerful system into a Mac Pro without an expansion chassis. Now, if you're using another type of computer, maybe a MacBook Pro, an iMac, you can attach a Magma EB3T expansion chassis. It's a 3-slot PCIe chassis that hooks up via Thunderbolt, and that allows you to use any of those type of Thunderbolt connected computers as opposed to a traditional Mac Pro with HDX. So there's a lot of options that we've now qualified to get really an amazingly powerful and outstanding sounding system. For more information on the Avid products we discussed, check out the Vintage King website or contact your sales representative.